I never thought Tuesday afternoon would be the day my entire world turned upside down. I was driving home from work 2 hours early because my meeting got canceled. The spring sunshine felt warm through the car window. I was thinking about what to make for dinner. Maybe I would surprise Marcus with his favorite meal. We had been married for 8 years, and lately things felt a little distant between us. I thought maybe a nice gesture would help bring us closer again. I pulled into our driveway and noticed Marcus's car was there. That was strange. He usually worked until at least 6. Maybe he was sick. I grabbed my purse and briefcase from the passenger seat and walked up to our front door. I used my key to open it quietly, not wanting to wake him if he was resting. The moment I stepped inside, I heard his voice coming from his home office down the hall. He was on the phone. His tone was urgent, almost panicked. I froze in the entryway, my hand still on the doorknob. Something about the way he sounded made my stomach tighten. I stood there, not moving, barely breathing. I need to leave her before she finds out. His words cut through the air like a knife. Everything is already set up. I just need a few more weeks to transfer everything. Then I can disappear before she realizes what happened. My heart started pounding, so hard I could hear it in my ears. Who was he talking about? Who was going to find out what? I pressed myself against the wall in the hallway, trying to stay hidden while I listened. My hands were shaking. My whole body felt cold despite the warm afternoon. Marcus continued talking. The woman doesn't suspect anything. She's too trusting, too busy with her own work to notice. By the time she figures it out, the money will be long gone. I'll be starting fresh somewhere else. You and me, baby. Just like we planned. Baby. He called someone baby. Not me. Someone else. The pain in my chest was physical, like someone had reached in and squeezed my heart. 8 years. We had been together for 8 years. I had trusted him completely. I had built my life around our marriage. And now I was standing in my own home, listening to my husband plan to leave me and steal from me. I should have announced myself right then. I should have walked into that office and confronted him. But something stopped me. Some instinct told me to stay quiet, to listen, to learn everything I could before he knew I was there. My legal training kicked in. I was a contract attorney. I knew the value of information. I knew that acting on emotion could be disastrous. I needed to be smart about this. Marcus laughed at something the person on the other end said. The sound made me feel sick. Yeah, she has no idea. She thinks we're so happy. She thinks I'm working late all those nights. She doesn't know I've been with you. She doesn't know about the offshore accounts. She doesn't know I've been planning this for 2 years. 2 years. My knees felt weak. For 2 years, he had been lying to me. For 2 years, he had been planning to destroy my life. I put my hand over my mouth to keep from making any sound. Tears were starting to form in my eyes, but I blinked them back. I could not break down. Not now. Not yet. I need to see the transfer confirmations again, Marcus said. Send them to my personal email. Not the one Camille knows about. The other one. And make sure you delete any trace from your end. We can't be too careful. Once I'm gone, her lawyers will try to track everything. But they won't find anything if we do this right. Camille. That was me. He was talking about me like I was a problem to solve. Like I was an obstacle in his way. Not his wife. Not the woman he had promised to love and honor. Just someone to deceive and abandon. I heard him moving in the office. His chair squeaked. I realized he might be getting ready to end the call. I couldn't let him find me standing there in the hallway. Not yet. I needed time to think. Time to plan. I moved as quietly as possible back toward the front door. My hands were still shaking as I opened it slowly, stepped outside, and closed it behind me with barely a sound. I stood on my own front porch, trying to catch my breath. The sunny afternoon suddenly felt like a nightmare. Everything looked normal. The neighborhood was quiet. Birds were singing. But nothing was normal. Nothing would ever be normal again. I walked back to my car on unsteady legs. I got inside and gripped the steering wheel with both hands. Then I let myself cry. Just for a minute. Just long enough to release the first wave of shock and pain. Then I stopped. I wiped my eyes. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My face was blotchy and red, but my eyes were hard. Determined. Marcus thought I was too trusting. too busy to notice. He thought he could steal from me and betray me and walk away without consequences. He was wrong. I was a lawyer. I knew how to build a case. I knew how to gather evidence. And I was going to make sure he regretted every lie he had ever told me. I started the car and drove away from my house. I needed to think clearly. I needed to make a plan. I drove to a coffee shop across town where I knew Marcus would never go. I ordered a large black coffee and found a table in the back corner. I pulled out my phone and started taking notes. Everything I had heard. Every detail. I wrote down the exact words he had said. I noted the time. I needed to document everything. Offshore accounts. That was the key. Marcus had been moving our money somewhere I couldn't find it. He had been planning this for 2 years. That meant there would be a trail. Digital footprints. Transactions. Communications. I just needed to find them. And I knew exactly where to start looking. Marcus and I had a joint account for household expenses, but we each kept separate accounts for our individual income. Or at least that's what I thought. Now I realized he probably had other accounts I didn't know about. Accounts he had hidden from me. But I had something he didn't know I had. I had the password to his laptop. About 6 months ago, Marcus had asked me to send an email from his computer because his phone was dead and he was late for a meeting. He had given me his password without thinking twice about it. I had never used it again. I had never thought I had a reason to. But he had never changed it. Men like Marcus, men who thought they were so smart, often made simple mistakes like that. They got overconfident. I needed to get into his laptop and find everything. Emails, bank statements, any communication with this woman he was planning to run away with. I needed evidence that would hold up in court. Evidence that would prove he had been stealing marital assets. Evidence that would destroy his credibility if he tried to fight me in a divorce. But I had to be careful. If Marcus realized I knew what he was planning, he might move up his timeline. He might transfer the money even faster. He might disappear before I could stop him. I needed to act like nothing was wrong. I needed to be the trusting wife he thought I was. Just for a little while longer. Just long enough to build my case. I finished my coffee and drove back home. It had been about an hour since I left. I parked in the driveway, took a deep breath, and walked to the front door. This time I opened it normally, letting it make its usual sound. I called out like everything was fine. Marcus, I'm home. My meeting got canceled. I heard movement from the office. Then Marcus appeared in the hallway, smiling. His smile looked fake now. How had I never noticed before? Hey, babe, he said, walking over to kiss my cheek. I'm glad you're home early. I was just finishing up some work. I forced myself to smile back. I forced myself to let him kiss me. Everything in me wanted to pull away. Wanted to scream at him. Wanted to tell him I knew everything. But I stayed calm. How was your day? I asked, setting my briefcase down on the hall table. Oh, Marcus said, shrugging. Same old stuff. Conference calls. Paperwork. Nothing exciting. He was lying so easily. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. I wondered how many times he had lied to me before. How many times he had looked me in the eye and told me something completely false. The thought made me feel sick. I'm going to go change, I said, moving past him toward our bedroom. Then I'll start dinner. He nodded and went back to his office. I walked into our bedroom and closed the door. I leaned against it, trying to steady my breathing. I could do this. I had to do this. I changed into comfortable clothes, my mind racing with plans. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I had never been before. I became a detective, a spy in my own home. Every time Marcus left for work, I went straight to his laptop. He kept it in his office, usually closed but not locked away. That first morning after I discovered his plan, my hands shook as I opened the laptop and entered the password. It worked. I was in. I started with his email. He had 2 accounts. One I knew about, our family email that we used for bills and regular communication, and one I had never seen before. A personal account with a username I didn't recognize. I clicked on it. The inbox was full of messages. I started reading, and each one felt like another stab to my heart. The woman's name was Jasmine. She was 26 years old, 10 years younger than me. She worked at Marcus's office as an administrative assistant. That's how they met. The emails went back almost 3 years, not two. Even longer than he had told her on the phone. The early messages were flirty, innocent almost, but they quickly turned into something more. Plans to meet, plans to be together, plans to leave me. I found messages about the money. Marcus had been slowly transferring funds from our joint investment accounts into accounts in the Cayman Islands. Small amounts at first, so I wouldn't notice, then larger amounts as he got more confident. He had moved over $300,000, money we had saved together, money my father had given us as a wedding gift, money from my grandmother's inheritance, all of it stolen. I took screenshots of everything. I uploaded them to a secure cloud account that Marcus didn't know existed. I printed out the most important emails and hid them in my office at work. I documented every transaction I could find, every message, every lie. I was building a file that would be impossible to deny. But the hardest part was pretending everything was normal. Coming home every evening and smiling at Marcus, cooking dinner, watching television together, lying in bed next to him at night. Every moment felt like torture. I wanted to scream at him, to throw him out, to tell him I knew everything. But I kept quiet. I kept gathering evidence, because I knew that when I finally confronted him, I needed to have every piece of information possible. I also started making my own preparations. I opened a new bank account in just my name at a different bank. I transferred half of our joint savings account into it. That was legally my money, and I wasn't going to let him take it. I met with a divorce attorney, a woman named Patricia, who had a reputation for being tough and smart. I showed her everything I had found. Her eyes widened as she looked through the screenshots and documents. "This is serious," Patricia said, looking up at me. "This isn't just adultery. This is financial fraud. He's been systematically stealing marital assets and hiding them. We can not only get you a favorable divorce settlement, but we might be able to pursue criminal charges." I nodded. "I want both," I told her. "I want everything he tried to take from me, and I want him to face consequences for what he's done." Patricia drew up divorce papers. She prepared a motion to freeze all of Marcus's accounts. She contacted a forensic accountant who specialized in finding hidden assets. We built a strategy. We planned every step. And we decided on a date for me to serve him with papers. It would be exactly 3 weeks from the day I had overheard his phone call. 3 weeks of playing a role. 3 weeks of pretending to be the trusting wife. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. During those 3 weeks, I also started making plans for my own future. I met with my boss and asked for more responsibilities at work. I wanted to be financially independent. I wanted to rebuild my life. I started looking at apartments, small places that I could afford on my own salary. I wasn't going to stay in the house I had shared with Marcus. Too many memories, too much pain. I wanted to start fresh. I also told my best friend, Keisha, what was happening. She was the only person I trusted completely. Keisha was furious when I told her everything. "Girl," she said, shaking her head, "I never liked Marcus. I always thought something was off about him. But I never imagined he was this much of a snake." She held my hand and let me cry. She reminded me that I was strong, that I would get through this, that I deserved so much better. Her support meant everything. The day finally came. It was a Thursday morning. Marcus left for work like usual, kissing me on the cheek and telling me he would be home late. "Another work dinner," he said. I knew he was probably meeting Jasmine, but it didn't matter anymore, because today was the day everything changed. I had taken the day off work. I called Patricia and told her it was time. She sent a process server to Marcus's office. At exactly 10 in the morning, while Marcus was sitting at his desk, probably planning his next lie, the server walked in and handed him the divorce papers. Patricia called me right after. "He's been served," she said. "The papers include the motion to freeze his accounts and a restraining order preventing him from removing any assets or contacting Jasmine. He's probably in shock right now." I sat in my apartment. Yes, I had already moved out some of my things to a new place, waiting. I knew Marcus would call. I knew he would try to talk to me, to convince me, to lie some more. But I was ready. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring twice before I answered. I wanted him to sweat a little. Hello, I said calmly. Camille, what the hell is this? He shouted. His voice was angry, panicked. I just got served with divorce papers at my office. In front of everyone. You're trying to freeze my accounts. You filed a restraining order. What are you doing? I'm protecting myself from a thief and a liar, I said, my voice steady. I know everything, Marcus. I know about Jasmine. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about the $300,000 you stole from us. I know you've been planning to leave me. I heard you on the phone 3 weeks ago. I've been gathering evidence ever since. There was silence on the other end. Complete silence. I could almost hear him trying to think of something to say, trying to figure out how much I really knew. You were spying on me, he finally said, his voice different now. Quieter. Defensive. I came home early, I corrected him. To my own house. And I heard you planning to rob me and abandon me. That's not spying. That's discovering the truth. Marcus tried to recover. Babe, listen, you don't understand. Let me explain. This isn't what it looks like. I can explain everything. I almost laughed. It was exactly what I expected him to say. Save it for the judge, I told him. My lawyer has all the evidence. The emails, the bank transfers, everything. You're done, Marcus. You're not getting away with this. He started to argue, but I hung up. I blocked his number. I blocked him on every platform. I didn't want to hear from him again, unless it was through lawyers. I sat in my new apartment in the silence and felt something unexpected. Relief. The pretending was over. The lying was over. I didn't have to act anymore. I could start healing. The next few months were hard. The divorce process was complicated because Marcus fought everything. He claimed the offshore accounts didn't exist until the forensic accountant found them and proved he was lying. He claimed Jasmine was just a friend until Patricia presented the emails and text messages showing their affair and their plans. He claimed he had a right to the money until the judge reminded him that hiding marital assets and planning to flee with them was fraud. Marcus's life fell apart. His company fired him when they learned about his theft and lies. Jasmine left him when she realized he had no money and no prospects. He had to move in with his brother because he couldn't afford rent. His reputation was destroyed. People who had respected him now saw him for what he really was. A con man, a cheater, a coward. The judge ruled in my favor on almost everything. I got back the $300,000 Marcus had stolen, plus additional compensation for emotional distress and legal fees. I got the house, which I immediately sold and used the money to put a down payment on a beautiful condo in a new neighborhood. I got to keep my dignity and my self-respect. Marcus got nothing but the consequences of his choices. 1 year after I overheard that phone call, I was living a completely different life. I had been promoted at work. I was making more money than ever before. I had decorated my condo exactly how I wanted it. I had started dating again. Nothing serious, just enjoying meeting new people. I had joined a book club and made new friends. I was happy, genuinely happy, in a way I hadn't been in years, maybe ever. Keisha took me out to dinner to celebrate the anniversary of my freedom, as she called it. We went to an upscale restaurant downtown. We ordered expensive wine and appetizers. We laughed and talked for hours. At one point, Keisha raised her glass and said, "To you, Camille. You took the worst moment of your life and turned it into the best decision you ever made. I'm so proud of you." I clinked my glass against hers, smiling. "I'm proud of me too," I said. And I meant it. I had every reason to be proud. I had been betrayed and hurt, but I hadn't let it destroy me. I had been strategic. I had been strong. I had fought for myself when no one else would. And I had won, not just in court, but in life. I had taken back my power. I had rebuilt everything Marcus tried to take from me, and I had done it on my own terms. As we were finishing dessert, Keisha's phone buzzed. She looked at it and her eyes got wide. "Girl," she said, turning the phone toward me, "you need to see this." It was a social media post from a mutual acquaintance. There was a photo of Marcus. He looked terrible, older, worn down. The caption said something about seeing people from the past and how time changes everyone. I looked at the photo for a moment, then handed the phone back to Keisha. "I don't care," I said simply, and I realized I truly didn't. Marcus was my past, a painful chapter that was closed. I had no interest in what he was doing or who he was with or whether he was suffering. I had moved on completely. That was the real victory, not the money or the court ruling. The victory was that I was free. Free from him. Free from the lies. Free from the life I thought I wanted, but that was never real. I was free to build something better. Keisha smiled at me. "That's my girl," she said. "You've really let it go." I nodded. "I have," I said, "because holding on to anger would only hurt me. He's not worth any more of my energy." I spent 3 weeks pretending to be okay while I gathered evidence. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it taught me something important. I'm stronger than I thought. I can survive anything. And I don't need a man to be happy or successful. I can do that all by myself. We left the restaurant and walked through the downtown streets. It was a beautiful evening. The city lights were bright. People were out enjoying the night. I felt like I was part of the world again in a way I hadn't been during my marriage. I had been so focused on Marcus and making him happy and being a good wife that I had lost myself. Now I was finding out who Camille really was, and I liked her. She was independent and smart and resilient. She was someone worth being. That weekend, I visited my parents. They had been worried about me during the divorce, but now they could see I was thriving. My father pulled me aside while my mother was making lunch. "Sweetheart," he said, "I'm sorry I ever trusted Marcus with our family money. I should have protected you better." I shook my head and hugged him. "Dad, this wasn't your fault. Marcus fooled all of us, but I got the money back. And I learned a really important lesson. Trust, but verify. Always protect yourself, even when you love someone." My father smiled, proud of me. "You've grown so much through this," he said. "I hate that you had to go through pain to get here, but you've become an even stronger woman. You're going to do amazing things with your life." His words meant everything to me. My parents had always supported me, but hearing my father say he was proud of how I handled everything made me feel validated. I had done the right thing. I had been smart and careful, and now I was reaping the benefits. As I drove back to my condo that evening, I thought about everything that had happened over the past year. If someone had told me a year ago that I would be divorced, living alone, and happier than ever, I wouldn't have believed them. I had thought my marriage was my identity. I had thought I needed Marcus. I had thought our life together was what I wanted, but I was wrong. That life was built on lies. And once the lies were exposed, there was nothing real underneath. Now I was building a life based on truth. My own goals and dreams, my own timeline. I didn't have to compromise or sacrifice or pretend anymore. I could be fully myself. And that was the greatest gift Marcus could have given me, even though he didn't mean to. By betraying me, he set me free. He showed me that I was capable of so much more than I thought. He proved that I didn't need him, that I was enough all by myself. I started volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping other women who were going through divorces. Many of them had stories similar to mine: cheating husbands, financial abuse, lies and deception. I helped them understand their rights. I helped them gather evidence. I helped them prepare for court. And I told them my story. I told them that survival was possible, that happiness was possible, that they could rebuild their lives and come out stronger on the other side. One woman I helped, Teresa, reminded me so much of myself a year earlier. She was scared and hurt and didn't think she could make it on her own. Her husband had controlled all the money. He had made her believe she was worthless without him. But I showed her the truth. I helped her find the hidden accounts. I helped her get a good lawyer. I walked her through the process step by step. And 6 months later, she called me crying tears of joy. She had won her case. She got the house and custody of her kids. She got child support. And she got her confidence back. "That's what this is all about," I told her. "It's not just about winning in court. It's about winning in life. It's about taking back your power and remembering who you are. Your husband tried to make you small, but you're not small. You're strong and capable and worthy of respect. Don't ever forget that." Teresa thanked me over and over. She said I had saved her life, but really, helping her had helped me too. It reminded me why I went through everything I went through, so I could help others, so I could be a light for women who were still in the darkness. The legal aid work led to other opportunities. I was asked to speak at a conference about financial abuse in marriages. I was interviewed for a magazine article about women who rebuilt their lives after divorce. I started a blog sharing advice and resources for women going through similar situations. My story resonated with thousands of people. I received messages from women all over the country telling me I had inspired them, telling me I had given them hope, telling me I had changed their lives. It was humbling and empowering at the same time. I had taken my pain and turned it into purpose. I had taken the worst experience of my life and used it to help others. That felt like the ultimate victory. Marcus had tried to break me. Instead, he had made me unbreakable. He had tried to steal my future. Instead, I had created a better future than I ever imagined. A future where I was in control, where I made my own choices, where I defined my own success. 2 years after that fateful Tuesday afternoon, I was asked to give a TEDx talk about resilience and recovery after betrayal. I stood on that stage in front of hundreds of people and told my story. I talked about the moment I overheard Marcus on the phone. I talked about the pain and shock. I talked about the decision to gather evidence instead of confronting him immediately. I talked about the strength it took to pretend everything was normal while building my case. And I talked about the victory. Not just the legal victory, but the personal victory of reclaiming my life. The audience gave me a standing ovation. Afterwards, dozens of people came up to talk to me, to thank me, to share their own stories. I realized that betrayal and recovery were universal experiences. Everyone had been hurt by someone they trusted. Everyone had to decide whether to let that hurt define them or to use it as fuel for growth. I had chosen growth, and I wanted to help as many people as possible make that same choice. My dating life eventually led to someone special. His name was Daniel. He was a civil rights attorney with a kind heart and honest eyes. We met at a legal conference. He had heard me speak and wanted to tell me how moved he was by my story. We started talking and didn't stop for 3 hours. He asked for my number. I hesitated for a moment, old fears creeping in. But then I remembered who I was now. I was someone who took chances, someone who didn't let fear control her. So I gave him my number. Daniel and I took things slow. I was honest with him from the beginning about my past, about Marcus and the divorce and the trust issues I still work through sometimes. Daniel never pushed me. He never made me feel bad for being cautious. He simply showed up consistently and genuinely, proving through his actions that he was different, that he was trustworthy, that he was worth the risk of opening my heart again. One evening, about 6 months into our relationship, Daniel and I were having dinner at my place. I had cooked, something I now enjoyed doing for people I cared about when it was my choice and not an obligation. We were talking about our days, sharing stories, laughing. At one point, Daniel looked at me seriously and said, "Camille, I need to tell you something." My heart skipped a beat. Old trauma responses kicking in. But I took a breath and said, "Okay, I'm falling in love with you," Daniel said, his eyes sincere. "And I want you to know that I see you. Really see you. I see how strong you are, how kind you are, how much you've overcome. I know you've been hurt before. I know trust is hard for you. But I promise you I will never lie to you. I will never betray you. I will always be honest, even when it's hard. You deserve that. You deserve everything good." Tears filled my eyes, but they were good tears. Happy tears. I realized in that moment that I had truly healed. I had done the work. I had processed the pain. I had learned the lessons. And now I was ready to love again. Really love. Not the naive trust one had given Marcus, but a mature, wise love that had eyes wide open and still chose to believe in goodness. I took Daniel's hand and said, "I'm falling in love with you too. And I'm not afraid anymore." That was the moment I knew I had really won. The moment I realized Marcus hadn't ruined me for future relationships. He had taught me what to avoid, what red flags to watch for, what I would never tolerate again. But more importantly, I had taught myself what I deserved, what real love looked like, what partnership meant. And I had learned that I was whole and complete all by myself, which meant I was choosing to be with Daniel, not needing to be with him. That made all the difference. 3 years after I came home early and overheard those devastating words, I was standing in my beautiful condo, getting ready for a celebration. My law firm was throwing a party in my honor. I had just been made partner, the youngest female partner in the firm's history. My career had exploded in the years since my divorce. Turns out, all that energy I had been putting into a failing marriage could be redirected into professional success. Who knew? As I put on my earrings and checked my reflection in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. She looked confident, powerful, happy. She looked nothing like the scared, hurt woman who had stood in a hallway 3 years ago, listening to her world crumble. That woman had survived. This woman was thriving, and I was proud of both of them. Proud of the survival and proud of the thriving. Both took incredible strength. The party was incredible. My colleagues, my friends, my family, all there to celebrate. Keisha made a toast that had everyone laughing and crying. My parents beamed with pride. Daniel stood by my side, supportive and loving. At one point in the evening, I stepped outside onto the balcony for a moment of quiet. I looked out at the city lights and thought about how far I had come, how much I had grown, how different my life was now. Keisha joined me on the balcony. She handed me a glass of champagne and said, "What are you thinking about?" I smiled. "I'm thinking about that Tuesday afternoon 3 years ago. About the moment everything changed. About how it felt like the end of the world. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of the life I was always meant to have. I just didn't know it yet." Keisha clinked her glass against mine. "To new beginnings," she said. "And to the strongest woman I know." We drank, and I felt gratitude wash over me. Gratitude for my strength. Gratitude for my resilience. Gratitude for the people who had supported me. Gratitude for the lessons I learned. And yes, even gratitude for Marcus and his betrayal. Because without that pain, I would never have discovered who I really was. I would never have pushed myself to become this version of Camille. The version I actually liked. The version I was proud to be. Looking back now, I can say with complete honesty that the worst day of my life led to the best years of my life. Marcus thought he was so smart, thought he could deceive me and steal from me and walk away without consequences. But he underestimated me. He saw me as weak and trusting. He saw me as an easy target. He was wrong. I was strategic. I was patient. I was thorough. And I was ruthless when I needed to be. I protected myself and my future with everything I had. And I won. The last time I heard anything about Marcus was from a former mutual friend. Apparently, he was working as a sales associate at an electronics store, living in a small apartment, still single, still dealing with the consequences of his choices. I felt nothing when I heard that. No satisfaction, no pity, just nothing. He was irrelevant to my life, a footnote in my history, a cautionary tale I shared to help others, but not someone I thought about or cared about anymore. That indifference was the final proof that I had truly moved on. Now, when I tell my story, I always end with the same message. If you find yourself in a situation like I was in, where you discover betrayal and your first instinct is to confront immediately, stop. Take a breath. Think strategically. Gather evidence. Protect yourself. Build your case. Then act from a position of strength, not from a place of emotion. You'll thank yourself later. Trust me, the short-term satisfaction of an immediate confrontation is nothing compared to the long-term victory of a well-planned response. And remember this, you are stronger than you think. You can survive things you never thought possible. You can rebuild when everything falls apart. You can thrive after devastation. I know because I did it. And if I can do it, so can you. Don't let anyone make you feel small or weak or incapable. Don't let betrayal define you. Let your response to betrayal define you. Let your strength and resilience and determination define you. That's what really matters in the end. My life now is better than I ever dreamed possible during those 8 years with Marcus. I have professional success, financial security, genuine friendships, a loving relationship with Daniel, a sense of purpose through helping other women. And most importantly, I have myself, my true self. Not the version I thought I had to be to make Marcus happy. Not the accommodating, self-sacrificing wife who lost herself trying to hold together a marriage that was never real, but the authentic, strong, independent woman I was always meant to be. Every morning when I wake up in my beautiful condo, in my comfortable bed, I feel grateful. Grateful for the life I built from the ashes of my old life. Grateful for the wisdom I gained from the pain. Grateful for the strength I discovered when I had no choice but to be strong. And grateful that I came home early that Tuesday afternoon. Because if I had come home at my normal time, I might never have overheard that conversation. I might have continued living a lie. I might have woken up one day to find Marcus gone and all our money gone with him. Instead, I heard the truth. And the truth, as painful as it was, set me free. So yes, I came home early and heard my husband say he needed to leave me before I found out what he'd done. Then he saw me standing there, and his world ended while mine began. That's the story of how I lost everything and gained everything in the same moment. That's the story of how betrayal became my catalyst for transformation. That's the story of how I stopped being a victim and became a victor. And I wouldn't change a single thing about it, because it made me who I am today. And I really, really like who I am today. Did you enjoy the story? I'd love to hear where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let me know which city you're in. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I share new stories every day, and there's so much more to come. 2 more amazing stories will pop up on your screen in just a moment. Choose whichever one calls to you. I'll see you in the next story. With love and respect.